أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله الطاهرين. Continuing with the verses of Surah Imran, the story of Maryam and her family. وَإِذْ قَالَتِ الْمَلَائِكَةُ يَا مَرْيَمْ إِنَّ اللَّهَ اصْطَفَاكِ وَطَهَّرَكِ وَاصْطَفَاكِ عَلَى نِسَاءِ الْعَالَمِينَ. And remember when the angels said to Maryam, God has chosen you and purified you and chosen you over all ladies of the world. Now this is a return to the story of Maryam. You remember we left the story of Maryam for a while. We had an insertion of another story of Zakaria. Then we come back. If you look into the stories of the Quran, it's very beautiful. There are lots of insertions for transition of time, transition of place. One of them I will mention shortly when we come here. The style of the storytelling in the Quran is fascinating. The way with the shortest sentences, a long story is said, the most important points and concepts are brought in, and then it is moved to another story. So, now we come back to the story of Maryam. When the angels said, "Oh Maryam, God has chosen you." Istifa, we mentioned before, means to choose, to refine and to choose. So she was of course chosen. However, sometimes the istifa is chosen after a while a person practices certain things, certain purification process. Sometimes istifa happens right from the beginning, from childhood. This is a wisdom which are not very much revealed to us. And the reason of it is that if we don't have people of this caliber, we never will be guided. We need the people of this caliber. And if you have noticed in Surah Yusuf, when Surah Yusuf is talking to his cellmates, he says that مَا كَانَ لَنَا أَن نُشْرَكَ بِاللَّهِ مِنْ شَيْءٍ. Me and my fathers never ever, since childhood, have associated anything with God. ذَلِكَ مِنْ فَضْلِ اللَّهِ عَلَيْنَا وَعَلَى النَّاسِ. This is a grace of God upon us and upon people. Because if there were not people of such a caliber, we wouldn't have found our way, we wouldn't have made the connection with the above. However, there's one other thing. This istifa doesn't mean that they lose their free will. Allah just somehow drives them towards whatever He wants. No. This istifa from childhood is even more difficult than when someone is chosen after a process. Because keeping this while you have not worked for it for a long time is more difficult. Look at how the prophets lived, always on fear. Look at how Isa alayhi salam lived, how Yahya alayhi salam lived, how Maryam lived, always on fear. Why? Because it was possible that at every moment they lose the capacity or the grace that Allah had given them. The more Allah gives you, the more you have to pay thanks. The more you have to pay thanks, the more you have to be careful. Not to somehow swerve or not to deviate. The slightest deviation for them is catastrophic. For us, no. Of course, we make lots of deviations, then we repent and Allah forgives us. For them, the slightest deviation is catastrophic, and therefore they live a life that is not possible for us to live, certainly. Always on fear, always on having attention to what is their duty towards Allah. So, Allah has chosen. Now, how this istifa, the first istifa is what? Allah had actually, before her birth, Allah told to her mother that I'm giving you a daughter. after she was born, Allah told her mother that this girl which is born is not like a son that you and your husband would have imagined. She has high qualities. And then also her mother requested God to keep her away from shaitan, and she was responded positively, and this was the istighfar. After this istighfar, وَتَحَرَكَ, then he put you through a process of purification. Would someone like Maryam need purification? Now, whenever we read this verse from Surah Ahzab, إِنَّمَا يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ لِيُذْهِبَ عَنْكُمُ الرِّجْسَ أَهْلَ الْبَيْتِ وَيُطَهِّرَكُمْ تَطْهِيرًا. God intends to purify you, Ahlul Bayt, and remove rijs and evil from you. And rijs in the Quran is anything which is opposed to aql is rijs. كَذَلِكَ يَجْعَلُ اللَّهُ الرِّجْسَ عَلَى الَّذِينَ لَا يَعْقِلُونَ. Anyone who doesn't have aql, the slightest deviation from aql, to that amount we have rijs in ourselves. So all of us have rijs because we deviate from aql in most of the time. But for them, Allah says, يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ لِيُذْهِبَ عَنْكُمُ الرِّجْسَ. The uncleanliness of jahl, Allah is removing from you. Now the exegetes say that this إِنَّمَا يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ, which is in a mudare, continuous sense, means that purification after purification after purification. There is a sort of continuity in this. إِنَّمَا يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ. God is willing continuously to purify you. Do they need purification after all that they are chosen, like Maryam is chosen, istafaka? Now, what is this purification? This purification is different from purifying from sin. At this stage, there is no sin anymore. It is purification from rijs. And rijs, of course, their intellect is complete, but it's not unlimited. So the limits of their capacity of their existence is widened and widened and widened day after day. And that is why their knowledge increases day after day, their knowledge about God. We have lots of ahadith in Kafi that A'imma say every night of Jummah, our knowledge increases tremendously. Now, that means, first of all, they do not have ultimate knowledge. And secondly, the process of purification is bringing them knowledge after knowledge after knowledge. And that's why Allah mentioned in the Quran to His Prophet, وَقُلْ رَبِّ زِدْنِي عِلْمًا. Say, Ya Allah, increase my knowledge. That knowledge is not about creation. Of course, they have great knowledge about creation, but sometimes they don't know very simple things. Like, for example, what is going to happen tomorrow. They may not know it. That knowledge is about the realm of God. That knowledge is about how Allah, Malakut, creation work. That is the knowledge which increases. And of course, the more this knowledge increases, the purer and purer they become in the heart. Inshallah, when we go to paradise, we will experience this. All these, you see, everything which is happening here will happen for us in paradise. We shouldn't be in a hurry. Everything which is happening for these awliya will happen for us in paradise, inshallah, and we will have the excitement of this increasing knowledge day after day, and that longing for Allah which increases day after day. There is a hadith which says after 50,000 years that people, the mu'minun, live in paradise, the level of their knowledge of Allah will become like the level of the knowledge of the Prophet in this world. Now, what will be the level of the knowledge of Prophet there? God knows. God knows what level of knowledge the Prophet would achieve there. Anyhow, this tathir is to take the limitations of receiving the grace. Because the grace of Allah is unlimited. What limits is just like an ocean. The container is limited. So, this container of the soul of these awliya, like Maryam, like Aalee, like the prophets, is widened and become bigger and bigger day after day. This is the meaning of Tathir. Inna Allah astafake wa tahharake. Amirul Mu'min said to Kumail, Ya Kumail, Inna hadhihi al-qulub aw'iyah, fa khayruha aw'aha. You probably know this from Nahjul Balagha. These hearts are like containers. The best of them is the one which can contain more, because the grace of Allah is not withdrawn from anyone, comes day after day, continuously, without any limit. It comes. The containers are limited to take it. So the bigger the container, the better they can get the grace. And this is how Maryam is going through a process of receiving this grace more and more. Wastafaka. After this purification, now He has chosen you for a mission, a big mission. And that big mission, of course, is to give birth to someone who no other woman can give birth to. And probably no man is match for you to be his father. That's why he should be born without father. And we have this about Fatima to Zahra salamullah alayha. In Al-Kafi, there is a hadith which says, Lawla an khalaqallahu Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, ma kana li Fatimata ala wajh al-ard kufwun min Adam wa dunah. If Allah had not created Amir al-Mu'mineen, Fatima would not have a match to marry her from the time of Adam downward. Now, of course, we know that the prophets, for example, marry ladies who are not their match in their spirituality. And Fatima could have married a man who was not her match, and nothing would have happened, just like many other ladies. We know Mariam most probably married after Isa was born to her cousin Joseph. But Joseph was not her match, but she married him. So what's the meaning of Fatima wouldn't have any match? To give birth to Hassan and Hussein. That is the meaning of it. That if there was not Amirul Mu'mineen, either Fatima should have given birth to these two without a father like Maryam, or they wouldn't have been born. And here as well, the same thing. He has chosen you ala nisa'il alam. We have in traditions that Fatima, peace be on her, was receiving the same message from the angels. In Al-Kafi, there is a hadith. In Ilal al-Sharaya, there is a hadith which says that Fatima, peace be on her, used to hear, Ya Fatima, Inna Allah astafake wa tahharake wa astafake ala nisa'il alamin. And on hearing that from the angels, she said, isn't Maryam the one who was chosen ala nisa'il alamin? And the angels replied to her that, well, Maryam was chosen over the women of her time, but you are chosen over the ladies of all times. There's another interpretation for this as well, that yes, of course, she was chosen, Maryam was chosen over the women of all times to give birth to Jesus. Of course, Fatima didn't have this quality, giving birth to a son without a father. But Maryam was given this specific grace, so she was chosen over the women of all generations throughout the time. Now you may say, first of all, if Maryam was not a prophet, first of all the question, was she a prophetess or not? Ibn Hazm says that she was a prophetess, the only scholar who says that she was a prophetess, and then some of his students say that. And the reason is, the reason for saying that she was a prophetess is that, well, the Quran very clearly says, إِذْ قَالَتِ الْمَلَائِكَةُ يَا مَرْيَمْ. The angels talked to her, and she talked to them. قالت أَنَّا يَكُونُ لِي غُلَامٌ, how can I give birth to a son? So this is the proof that she was a prophetess. But this is not accepted by majority or overwhelming majority of Muslim scholars. Al-Muhayyami, who was a 9th century exegete, a Sunni exegete, says that this verse is a proof that angels may talk to awliya. Now, awliya, Al-Muhayyami was a sort of Sufi-like mufassir, so talks about awliya. We discussed before that Siddiqeen have this ability to be communicated and communicate with the angels. And that's why Fatima was communicated by angels. Amir al-Mu'mineen did communicate with angels, and many others. Someone asked Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam that, what is your status? What is your status? Because you say that you are in touch with the world above, and you receive your knowledge directly, not through chains of transmission. You say whatever we say is from the Prophet, peace be on him, without having a chain of transmission from him. He said, continued, are you prophets? He said, no, we are not prophets. We are like Dhul Qarnayn, who God communicated with him, but he was not a prophet. And we are like Sahib Musa. This hadith actually, if it is accepted, it means that Khidr was not a prophet. Or this man who talked to Musa in Surah Kahf was not Khidr. He was one of the Siddiqeen, who God had given him some knowledge which the Prophet did not have that knowledge. That's possible. Now, this clarifies very much the position of Shia with regards to their imams, very clearly. There are people who are called muhaddathin and muhaddathat. Muhaddath, muhaddatha. That they are communicated with the angels, but they don't have any mission. They are not prophets, they are siddiqeen and siddiqat, but they have this privilege that they are communicated by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they can communicate at times by Allah. The difference is the type of revelation. And of course, they don't have any mission. They just have to protect the religion of the Prophet. That's the position of our A'immah. They are protectors of the religion of the Prophet. They never say anything from themselves. Whatever they say is from the knowledge of the Prophet. That's all. Nothing more than that. Now, they are protectors, and in previous nations, there are a couple of hadith in al-Bukhari. It's amazing how these traditions are somehow fixed in a way that the privilege is taken away from Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. These couple of traditions say that the Prophet, peace be on him, said that in all nations who passed before you, and there's one thing that I want to mention after this hadith, very important. In all nations who passed before you, there were muhaddathin, who were not prophets, but Allah talked to them. They were muhaddathin. Nubuwwah, we have Khatmun Nubuwwah. Nubuwwah is finished. There is no Nubuwwah anymore, but the connection, the communication is not cut off. So, in all nations before you, there were muhaddathin. Then the hadith continues, and if there was in my nation one of them, it would have been Umar ibn al-Khattab. Now, we would like to question why we somehow have some grudge against this ummah to say that there is no muhaddath in this ummah. There is no muhaddatha in this ummah. If there was a muhaddatha and siddiqa like Maryam in Banu Israel, why shouldn't be one siddiqa and muhaddatha in Islam? Why? Why do you have such a grudge against Islam to say that no, all Muslimun are equal in faith, there is no superiority of one Muslim over another? Well, we know that this is not the case in the previous nations. Why do you think that it should be the case in this ummah? There are lots of differences in the spiritual stations in this ummah, and of course at top of them, Fatima as-Siddiqa and Ali ibn Abi Talib as-Siddiq. These are the chosen ones of this ummah after the Prophet, peace be on him. Now, let's come back to this. Ya Maryam. Now, إِذْ قَالَتِ الْمَلَائِكَةِ. This is interesting as well. In Surah Maryam, one angel is mentioned going to Maryam. فَأَرْسَلْنَا إِلَيْهَا رُوحَنَا فَتَمَثَّلَ لَهَا بَشَرًا سَوِيًّا. We sent our Ruh, that's Jibreel, to her, and he appeared to her as a human being and talked. Here he said, إِذْ قَالَتِ الْمَلَائِكَةِ. The angels said to Maryam. The exegetes have tried to explain this in different ways. One very interesting way of explanation of this is that angels like Jibreel are like kings. They never go anywhere alone. Wherever they go, they have their escorts of angels. Muta'in thamma amin, he is obeyed in all the heavens. He is more sublime than to go anywhere alone. And this is probably the meaning of what we read at the beginning of Surah Fatir. Alhamdulillah Fatir as-samawati wal-ard جاعل الملائكة رسلا أولي أجنحة مثنى وثلاثة ورباع. Making the angels messengers, and these messengers have wings, not wings to fly, wings like wings of army. Throngs of angels accompanying them wherever they go. And some of them have 2 wings of army, of throngs of angels going with them, some 3, some 4. And this is of course, the majesty of some of these angels. So when Jibreel comes and talks to Maryam, there are throngs of angels standing in respect, escorting him, so to speak, because he is from the sublime world coming down here. So, the angels told him, Ya Maryam. This is before telling her that she is going to give birth to a child, to a son. Ya Maryam, because God has chosen you, because God has purified you, uqnuti lirabbik. Now, thanksgiving for that, or to keep that is, to keep. Gaining a station may momentarily be possible, but keeping that station is very difficult. It's just like Hifdul Quran. Memorizing the Quran is easy. Keeping what you have memorized is very difficult. Gaining a station with God may be easy. Keeping that station is more difficult. So, to keep what you have, uqnuti lirabbik. Qunut. Now, qunut may mean dua, because the dua that the prayer we do at the second rak'ah of every salat, we call it qunut, isn't it? That's dua. However, qunut means continuity in obedience. This is qunut. As-sabirina was-sadiqina wal-qanitin. Those who have continuity in obedience. So, uqnuti lirabbik means continue. It means that she was actually doing all these things before, but continue after this chosenness that Allah has given you, continue to do that. And this is how Allah actually describes her. وَصَدَّقَتْ بِكَلِمَاتِ رَبِّهَا وَكُتُبِهِ وَكَانَتْ مِنَ الْقَانِتِينَ. She was one of the qanitin. If Allah gives us this, we always vie for wealth and position and things, these worldly things, because we are completely unaware of the treasures of the higher realm. If we know those treasures and what they are, we never look at these things that we are always busy seeking them. Ya Maryam, uqnuti lirabbik. This qunut, continuation, you shouldn't think that now that Allah has chosen you, that's the end of it now. Continue. Wasjudi, now you need to humble yourself. This sujood means humble. Some say this sujood means do prostration. Of course she was doing that. And there's no need telling her that you have to prostrate in your prayer. Or warkai, you have to do ruku in your prayer. This sujood, because sujood, the origin of sajda is humility, humbleness. Humble yourself before God. And this humbleness and humility is the secret of ubudiyah. Once Imam al-Jawad alayhi salam was asked, when your father passed away, did you feel that you had become an imam? Instantly, did you feel? How do you feel, for example, when an imam passes away and the next person becomes an imam? How do you feel that you have become an imam? What changes in you that makes you feel that you are an imam now? He said, I felt a humiliation in my heart before God that I never had felt that before. And that's told me that now you have raised to a station of imamah. You see, the higher you go, more humble you have to become. Farther away we go, more arrogant we become, isn't it? Shaitan had reached a high level with Allah in obedience. Then when he disobeyed, went arrogant, قَالَ اهْبِطْ مِنْهَا, go down. فَلَيْسَ لَكَ أَن تَتَكَبَّرَ فِيهَا. In this place you cannot have arrogance. If you have arrogance, you go down. The opposite argument would be, if you have humility, you go up. The more humble you are. So, Ya Maryam, أُقْنُتِ لِرَبِّكَ وَاسْجُدِي وَارْكَعِي مَعَ الرَّاكِعِينَ. This warka'i means pray in congregation. Now this was the whole issue with Maryam, that she had to go to Qudsul Aqdas, and she had to pray with men and all those problems which happened. Actually, this is telling that why those men who are quite impure in their hearts, they have to pray there, but you should not be allowed to go there. The standard, the criterion is purity. Go and pray there. Probably the order is not telling her that you should pray in congregation. It may mean that go there, you deserve, or that place will be blessed by you when you go there and pray there. Maybe. Now, we want to jump in time now. That the beauty of storytelling in the Quran, we need an insertion here. We want to jump in time. ذَلَكَ مِنْ أَنْبَاءِ الْغَيْبِ نُوحِيهِ إِلَيْكَ. This is the unseen news that we are revealing to you. وَمَا كُنْتَ لَدَيْهِمْ إِذْ يُلْقُونَ أَلْقَامَهُمْ. Now, you have given the details of this story, but you were not there when they were drawing lots. وَمَا أَيُّهُمْ يَكْفُلْ Mariam, who should be the guardian of Maryam. وَمَا كُنْتَ لَدَيْهِمْ إِذْ يَخْتَصِمُونَ. And you were not there when they were quarreling. We are telling you this. And this story of Maryam in itself was not very much known to the Christians, even the Christians of the Arabian Peninsula. And was not known very much to other Christians as well. There is an apocryphal gospel, which is the infancy gospel, talks about this story almost in the same way that the Quran mentions that, and actually some of the Orientalists have mentioned that this story is taken from that infancy Bible. However, we know that that Bible was not available there, and the Christians did not know about the story, and you have not heard it from anyone here because no one was aware of this story here. And you were not there, certainly, of course, everyone knows that. And therefore, you should know this is min anba al-ghayb. And of course, Prophet himself was unaware of that before. The revelation has come. As I said, sometimes we think that the knowledge of the prophets are just like knowledge of God. It is not. In Surah Hud, about the story of Nuh, he says, ذَلِكَ مِنْ أَنْبَاءِ الْغَيْبِ نُوحِيهَا إِلَيْكَ مَا كُنْتَ تَعْلَمُهَا أَنْتَ وَلَا قَوْمُكَ مِنْ قَبْلِ هَذَا. Neither you nor your people knew anything about this story before that. Now, the shift has happened now. We had a very beautiful insertion. This is the story of the unseen that we are telling you. Then, what about the continuation of this story? إذ قالت الملائكة يا مريم إن الله يبشرك بكلمة منه اسمه المسيح عيسى ابن مريم وجيها في الدنيا والآخرة ومن المقربين. Wow, what qualities are mentioned here for Isa. These stories actually make your heart to go out to just go to the next world and see these people, who these people were, that what sort of stance with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When the angels talk to Maryam, as I said, in Surah, Maryam is Ruh, or that Ruh which is Jibreel told to Maryam. Here it says the angels said to Maryam. And it seems that when Jibreel speaks, it's as if all the angels who are his trunks, his wings, so to speak, they speak. إِذْ قَالَتِ الْمَلَائِكَةُ. This is a sign of majesty, the majestic sort of information which is coming to Maryam. And Maryam realizes that this is coming from angels. Ya Maryam, inna Allah yubashshiruka bi kalimatin min. God is giving you good news of a kalima from himself. We discussed the meaning of kalima before. Other meanings have been given to that. We don't want to go into details about it. However, certain qualities are going to be mentioned about him. Ismuhu, first of all, his name. I name him. Ismuhu al-Masihu Isa. Now, Masih is mamsuh, someone who is touched by the oil, the blessed oil. That was a custom in Banu Israel. And if someone wanted to become a king, a prophet, for example, should have touched his head with the sacred oil. That was Mas. In the story of Talut, when Saul makes Talut to become the Samuel makes Talut was Saul. When Samuel makes Talut to become a king, he rubs his head with the ointment, the sacred oil. Now, Allah says that I have made him a king. So, actually it means Ismuhu al-Masihu Isa ibn Maryam. His name is King Jesus. His name is King Jesus. He is king in this world, he is king in the next world. However, his kingdom is not the kingdom of worldly kingdom, as the Jews imagine that when Messiah will come, he will give all the power to Banu Israel, wipe out their enemies. His kingdom was kingdom of heaven, as they call it. And the same thing is about what? Imam al-Asr. His kingdom is not, he doesn't come to just help the Shia or help the Muslims. He comes to change the world. And he doesn't come to give power to us. Power loses meaning there. It's just a spirituality which finds meaning. And that's why in all traditions we have that all his battles are just defensive battles. He just defends himself. He does not attack anyone. He just invites people, but because the world is would not tolerate him, they attack him, and he has to defend himself, and Allah will give him victory over all other things. So his name is King Isa. And Isa is an Arabic term which probably was used by the Christians of the time, because Isa is not a name which was used in Aramaic or in Hebrew. His name was Yeshua, or Yeshu. And then when, of course, they took Christianity to Rome, in Latin they used to call him Jesus. And maybe that was either from Arabic, or Arabic took it from Latin or Latin took it from Arabic, I don't know. But anyhow, it is a translation, and Quran always talks in translation. Doesn't speak in the language of the people. Otherwise, when, for example, it quotes something from Noah or from Jesus or from Moses, it should quote in Hebrew or Aramaic or other languages. So, Ismuhul Masih, Isa ibn Maryam. Now, why Isa ibn Maryam? First of all, because he doesn't have a father. Secondly, he is not Ibnullah. He is Ibn Maryam. Ismuhul Masih, Isa ibn Maryam. Wajihan fi dunya wal akhirah. Wajih means someone who has honor, dignity with God, of course. He has honor with God in this world and in the next world. He is supported by Ruh al-Qudus in this world, and in the next world, of course, he will be the Shafi of many, many people. And he is from Muqarrabin, wa min al-Muqarrabin. We discussed about Muqarrabin before. وَيُكَلِّمُ النَّاسَ فِي الْمَهْدِ وَكَهْلًا وَمِنَ الصَّالِحِينَ. He will talk to people in cradle, meaning in guidance probably. Not just saying that he can speak while he's in cradle or he's a child, but he speaks with guidance to people. فِي الْمَهْدِ وَكَهْلًا. Now about kahl, there are different interpretations. Kahl or kahula, there is a difference of opinion about what sort of age it is. They say after 30 a person will become a kahl. And some say it is after 40 years old. It's adulthood actually. When a person comes to adulthood, he is called a kahl. Depending what meaning we give to this kahl, whether 30, 33, 40, 50, all these are mentioned. It's not more than 50 anyhow. Because it's not to become elderly or senior. It's to become adult, to become quite mature in age. So it may mean that he only will be with the people until kahl, until 30 years. Then he will be raised. If we take it to be more than that, then it means that he will come back with Imam al-Mahdi alayhi salam, and he will speak and guide people at that time as well. We have to investigate more about the meaning of kahl to see what meaning is more suitable for it. Anyhow, يُكَلِّمُ النَّاسَ فِي الْمَهْدِ وَكَهْلًا وَمِنَ الصَّالِحِينَ. Now, all these are thrown suddenly as Maryam. You can imagine if someone is given such a huge information about the son who is going to be born. He is going to be king. He, of course, a spiritual king. He is wajihan fi dunya wal akhirah. He is min al muqarrabin. He miraculously speaks to people while in prayer, and that's why Maryam was quite assured when she brought him back to Banu Israel. Now, of course, all this is the good side of the story. This is the happy side of the story. We have an unhappy side of the story as well. When she gave birth to Isa alayhi salam without a father, what should she do with him? Who would believe her that this son is from God? And that's why she actually goes out of the city and she wants to go away. She doesn't want to come back. She just wants to go and somehow make herself lost in the vicinities, in faraway cities. But she is commanded by Allah, no, this is not the end of the story. Go back, you have to go back to Banu Israel. This child is for them. And of course, يُكَلِّمُ النَّاسَ فِي الْمَهْدِ. Now, Maryam is a bit reassured that he will somehow exonerate her from the allegations of Banu Israel. يُكَلِّمُ النَّاسَ فِي الْمَهْدِ وَكَهْلًا وَمِنَ الصَّالِحِينَ. Then, of course, she speaks to the angels. However, this is very interesting. She doesn't say, قَالَتْ يَا جِبْرَائِيل. And this shows that Jibreel and all these angels are just the instruments of God. The Prophet or the Siddiq or Siddiqa knows that God is speaking to them. It's not the angels. So, قَالَتْ رَبِّ أَنَّا يَكُونُ لِي وَلَدٌ. Inshallah, we will continue with this tomorrow night. وَصَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَى مُحَمَّدٍ وآله الطاهرين. Now we have this Siddiqa of Banu Israel, and Banu Israel wronged her very much. They alleged her of fornication. They alleged her that she's not a pure lady, and she was tremendously annoyed by Banu Israel. And our Siddiqa was annoyed as well. Annoyed in many different ways. Just one example I tell you, when someone is Siddiqa, the meaning of Siddiq and Siddiqa is not just to tell the truth by tongue. There are different levels of truth. One level is, yes, of course, whatever you say is true. Now, of course, that is impossible for us. Not that in our communication with our friends we cannot always say truth. No, it's possible. But when you say, وَجَّهْتُ وَجْهِيَ لِلَّذِي فَطَرَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ, I turn my heart completely to the one who created the heavens and the earth. Is it true? We cannot claim that we say the truth, isn't it? So this Siddiq is someone who has the truth at this level as well. When we say La ilaha illallah, there is nothing worthy of worship but God, and we actually put our heart in it, we see that no, there are many things which divert our attention. When we say Allahu Akbar, there are many things which are greater in our mind, in our imagination. So it's very difficult to be truthful at this level. Then there is deeper level of truthfulness in niyyah. Whatever you do, you have it purely for God. And it is in this way, as I said, the circle of Muqarrabin is not closed. We can also enter that circle, but it's very difficult. It's very difficult. The good thing is that whatever the Muqarrabun will have in paradise, inshallah, the leftover will be given to us, whatever they have. أَيْنًا إِنَّ الْأَبْرَارَ يَشْرَبُونَ مِنْ كَأْسٍ كَانَ مِزَاجُهَا كَافُورًا. أَيْنًا, we, inshallah, would they drink from a river? أَيْنًا يَشْرَبُ بِهَا عِبَادَ اللَّهِ, a river which Ibadullah drink from it. يُفَجِّرُونَهَا تَفْجِيرًا, they make it to flow, it comes to us and we drink from it. This is the good thing. But it's very difficult to enter into that circle, very difficult. This said, it's not impossible. We have in hadith, لا يزال المرء يصدق ويتحرى الصدق حتى يكتب عند الله صديقا. A person may all the time seek the truth and do the truth until they are written in Allah to be a Siddiq. And that is possible. Now, this Siddiq of the Ummah that we had, just because of political disagreement or political quarrel, the Prophet had given her some sort of a couple of villages to actually be an income for her and for her children and for Banu Hashim, a wider sort of circle. The Fadak, you know about it. It was from the Fay, it did not belong to the Muslimun, and Prophet had given it to Fatima to Zahra, peace be on her, so that after him he knew that these people are not going to be after dunya like many others who were after dunya and piled wealth above wealth. These people need just a sustenance, and the Prophet gave Fadak to Fatima so that her children have that sustenance. Now, after the demise of the Prophet, peace be on him, this Siddiqa was somehow deprived of that gift of the Prophet. They took it from her. She went and complained that, why have you taken the gift of my father from me? They said, well, we don't know it was a gift. It was an inheritance, and the Prophet do not leave any inheritance. Now, Fatima said, it was a gift. It was given to me. Now, initially they should accept from her. She is the Siddiqa, isn't it? They should accept from her that it was a gift from her father. And they said, who is your witness? He said, my witness is Ali ibn Abi Talib. I have no other witness. And they said, no, he's not accepted. Only one witness we do not accept. And they took it from her. Now, it's just like Banu Israel dealing with Maryam, isn't it? I mean, they could have said, okay, because you're daughter of the Prophet, we give it to you. Even if it belongs to the Baitul Mal, we give it to you. You're daughter of the Prophet. You're daughter of our Prophet. We give it to you. It's for you. Prophet wanted that to be in your possession while he was alive, and we give it to you after that. But they took it and gave it to other people. That's very interesting. That's very amazing. They give it to people who had animosity with the Prophet all their lives. That is the strange thing. How should they answer the way they dealt with Siddiqa of this ummah? That's why at the time of Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, because it was well known that this belonged to Fatima and her children. And Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, they say the pious caliph of Banu Umayyah, he returned the fadak to the children of Fatima al-Zahra. Wa sallallahu ala Muhammadin wa alihi.